Everybody, welcome to a sermon sidecar. This time we've got two of us because there's a question that I wanted to ask Dawson as he preached on Nehemiah 5, and great message looking at, and one of the things he and I talked about is Nehemiah 5 is just such a fantastically rich, meaty chapter that by nature you'd have to choose, okay, what's the focus of the message going to be? And you really, I don't think, would build a whole message around this verse. So I agree with you in not preaching on it. But here's a question. Verse 7, chapter 5, verse 7. He's angry. He hears the report of the oppression of the people, the mistreatment by their leadership, by their officials. In verse 7, he says, I took counsel with myself, and I brought charges against the nobles and the officials. The Bible also talks about in the counsel of many, there's wisdom. So how do you know when to seek outside counsel and when to take counsel with yourself?
I mean, I think I would label, especially in Nehemiah's case, we have to be aware of what specifically happened so that we don't just take that and, have some major life decision and say, well, I took counsel with myself, just like Nehemiah did, right? We have to be aware of the fact that in his case, I mean, I could have listed, there's like 12 different Levitical, Deuteronomical laws that the people are breaking. And so in his case, it's not it's not just that he's taking counsel with itself. It's the fact that the Bible is very plain on what they are doing and very plain on what the response to what they are doing is to be. And so I would say if you find yourself in a situation where the Bible itself is very, very plain on what ought to be the response, then you would be justified, like Nehemiah, saying, well, I'll take counsel with myself. If the Bible is not plain on it, the leading of the Spirit is not particularly plain as of yet, then yes, of course, multiple counselors, right? Like if it had been a more gray area form of oppression where it was a little bit harder to tell, then I think Nehemiah wouldn't have been justified in simply taking counsel with himself. But the fact that it was so black and white, obvious, again, breaking multiple Levitical, Mosaic laws, it's pretty plain that what the people are doing as members of the covenant community deserved the exact response that Nehemiah gave. Because one of the other hard parts of it in verse 6 is that he's angry. And it's kind of hard to say, for us, we read verses like, do not sin in your anger. And so we view angry responses sometimes as inherently sinful. And again, in Nehemiah's case, he has a direct breaking of the law. So he has this reason behind his anger. It's a
righteous anger.
Yeah. And so both of those fall into the category of very plain scriptural evidence as to what response is warranted. Therefore, he doesn't have to take a multi-week, get some advice type of process. He's able to go straight into it.
Boom. Bingo. That's exactly what I would have said. Is it clear in Scripture? If it's clear in Scripture, you don't need somebody else to chime in on that. God's chimed in on it.
Yeah.
And I also love that, he's angry and he pauses and takes counsel and think, so he's angry and he at least calms down enough to think and then go talk to him.
Yeah. A very deliberate pause.
Yep.
Seemingly. We can't put too much into
Too much time. We don't know how long that pause was, but there was at least time.
At least a pause.
At least a pause.
Yeah.
But no, I think it was a great answer, and that's a great length for a sermon sidecar. So there you go. When you read a verse like, how do I know if I can take counsel of myself or not? Bring it back to Scripture and God's authority. All right. We'll see you next time.
See you.